Hello everyone, my name is Sanya Mahajan. I am a legal intern in LEXCLIQ company, and today's topic of mine is consideration under a contract. As we all know, consideration is an inducement which is given to enter into a contract that is sufficient to render the promise enforceable in the courts. An introduction to it is consideration is one of the essential element of a valid contract. As a general rule, a contract without a consideration is considered as void one. This is the definition given by the Paul Law. And according to Paul Law, consideration is the price for which the promise of other is brought, and the promise thus given for the value is considered as enforceable. According to Section 2 Clause D of the Indian Contract Act, consideration is defined as under when, at the desire of the promiser, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing or a past consideration that is considered to be as past consideration, and secondly does or abstain from doing that is the present consideration, and promises to do or abstain from doing something that is future consideration. Such act or abstinence or the promise is called as consideration for the promise. Here is the example to the such consideration where P agrees to sell his car for rupees 50,000, and here Q promised to pay rupees 50,000 in consideration for P's promise, and P's promised to sell the car in the consideration for Q's promise. This is the legal rule related to the consideration under section 2. It must move at the desire of the promiser. It may move from the promisee or any other person. It may be an act, abstinence or obstinence or as a result of promise, and it may be the present, past or future consideration. Consideration need not to be adequate. It must be having some value. It must be real, not imaginary, and it must be something which the promiser is not already bound to. It must not be illegal, immoral, or opposed to public policy. Under section 25, no consideration means no contract, but exception to this rule are here which are provided under Indian Contract Act, that is number 1, on account of natural love and affection there is no need for any consideration with regard to any contract. For voluntary service, for promise to pay time barred debts in case of completed gifts, and in case of agency under section 185. Valid consideration must be given at the desire of a promiser. That means there must be a personal benefit, not necessary, voluntary contribution but not a good consideration, and consideration which is given at the desire or request of the third person is also not considered as a good consideration. Consideration may be given by the promisee or by another person. As per English law, consideration must move from promisee to the promiser only. In England, even a stranger to a consideration enforces a contract, and even if the party to the contract. The Indian law, consideration may be given by the promisee or any other person, or thus this is even given by a stranger. It can also enforce a contract provided he is a party to a contract and consideration for the contract has been given by the person. There are some kinds of consideration. Consideration may be executory, that is the future consideration. In the future consideration, one party makes a promise in response to a promise which is made by the other party. Then secondly, there is a present consideration, that is also known as the executed consideration. In an executed consideration, the promise of the promiser remains in existence at the time when the consideration is given. And thirdly, it is the past consideration. Past consideration is the consideration which is given below before the making of the promise by the promiser. So guys, this was all about the consideration under a contract, and if you need any information related to it, please do write in a comment section, and please do subscribe this channel LEXCLIQ.